Aloha. In this video, we're gonna do this reverse string assignment. And so if you we're supposed to write a recursive function that displays a string in reverse. So we're supposed to write a method that looks like this: reverse display. And so and then we're going to write a test program that tests it. And this is what it should look like. If you enter in a string, then it should display the string back out again in reverse order. And we're going to write this program in Visual Studio 2019. So if we open Visual Studio 2019, we can create a new project. And a Python project, Windows Console. Click on here. Next. And I'm going to name this, let's see, let me put it on the desktop. And I'm going to name it Reverse Display. That's a nice name. Create. All right, here we are. Let's see. So let's start out by, let's see. Let's start out def main, and then we're going to read in the string. S equals input, enter a string. And then let's call this reverse display function that we're going to write. Okay, so this is just the, and it's going to be S that we call it with. And then let's clean up print a line feed, and then we're done. So this is the test. This will be the test program. And so there's this reverse display method, def reverse display, and it's going to bring, and what's going to come in is some sort of string. And so let's start out here. Let's see, I'm going to call this something else. Val, how about that? Value. Let's print out the value just so we can see it, so we know what's going on every time. Okay, so this is going to be a recursive function. Since it's a recursive function, this reverse display method is going to be called several times. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out by doing a non-iterative version of this. Okay, now I'm going to start out by doing an iterative version as opposed to a recursive version, just so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to print this value, and then I'm going to loop. Okay, so this value comes in. Let's say we type in this ABCD here. So what comes in is A, B, C, D. And what we want to do is first print out this one, print this one out first, then print this one out second, print this one out third, and print this one out fourth. So we want to start at the back end and print them like that. Okay, so so one way to do that would be we have this string, it's called VAL, and we're gonna just for each character there's a function in Python called reversed, in Python 3 called reversed, and that will just reverse this this iteration here, which is the range of the length of val. So this is a range. This is a range from 0 to the length of val minus 1. And then this reverses that. So this range is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, however how you go. This reverses it from the top one back down to the bottom one. And then I is the reference variable. So what we're going to do is for each one, we're just going to print it out. Val of I. We're going to do that in a way that doesn't with a line feed. All right. So this will simply display out the string in reverse order. And let me call main like that. And I think we can run this. Let me just try to run this. This pops up and enter a string A, B, C, D, E, enter, and it display. And this here, this A, B, C, D, E here is from here, and then it displays out the string in reverse order, E, D, C, B, A, with a space in between. That's because we have a space here. All right, so this is how it works. But this is an iterative version. This display is not a recursive display. So let's rewrite this. Let's add another one here. I'm going to call this one display iter. I'm just going to name that, and here I'm going to start a new def reverse display, and this time I'm going to make it iterative. Okay, so I can let me start out by printing. Let me start out by, let me put a space there, by printing val, just the same as I did before. Print val. So each time this is called, it's going to print the string that it was called with. Okay. Now, if I'm going to have this thing call itself, then I have to have. I'm going to successively call it. Okay, so I can first call it with the whole string, and then display the last character. Then I can call it again with the whole string without the last character, and then I can print the last character. And then I can call it again with the whole string without the last character, and then it prints this. And then I call it again with this string with everything but the last character, it prints this. And then when I call it again with everything but the last character, it's going to be empty, in which case it has to return. So let me do if the length of val is greater than 0, then we're gonna let's print the last character. So I can do print val of -1. It's the last character in val, and then do this end equals space there. Okay, so this is going to print the last character, and then I want to call myself again, verse display, and I'm going to call it with one one without the last character. So that would be val of 0 all the way to the last character minus 1. So that can be written that way. All right, so when this is going to now call this, and first thing it's going to do is it's going to print out val, and then it's going to go through this loop. And what this loop is going to do is first it's going to print out the last character, and then it's going to call itself again, but without the last character. Just it's going to hack off the last character, and then we should see it again because it's going to come back in here. So let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, enter. And so here we have, here we print out this A, B, C, D, E, that's from here. And then we print out the E because we printed it out here, see? And then we called itself, so it came back in here again. And so then it displays out this A, B, C, D without the last character, and then it prints out the D, and then it calls itself again A, B, C, and so on. So really, if we were not to have this print here, it's a hashtag in this language, it would look like this. A, B, C, D, E, C, D, E, D, C, B, A. All right. So that's one way to do recursion, but we can do recursion another way, where instead of let me just let me start over again. Clear the canvas. So if we do A, B, C, D, we can first we can call, and instead of printing then calling, we can call then print. So we start out with this, calling it. We call it on this string, and then before we print, we call it on this string, and then before we print, we call it on this string, and before we print, we call it on this string, and before we print, we call it on a null string, and then once it hits null, then we're done. So then we return, and when we return, we print the strings. So the first time we return, we're going to print. Wait a minute. Let's try this and see if this works. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to call this reverse display 2. And so this is going to be my reverse display. So I'm going to print val. And then before it's over, I'm going to print. Let's see. This is going to go. I'm just doing the recursion where we recurse before printing. So when this comes in, I want to call myself again, but I want to. I know how I messed up. Where's my whiteboard? I didn't mean to call the string each time hacking off the last one. I meant to call the string each time hacking off the first one. So let's erase this. And what I meant to do was, the string is A, B, C, D. Then before we print, we call, and we call with that string. And before we print, we call on this string. And then before we print, we call on this string. And then before we print, we call, and there's a null string. So then we return. When we return, we print. So the first thing we're going to print is the D, and then that'll return, and then it'll print the C, and then that'll return, and it'll print the B, and then that'll return, and it'll print the A. So that's how we're going to do. Each time we call, we're going to hack off beginning. So this would be done by calling val, and we're going to just do from 1 to the rest of the string. That's how you would depict that. So reverse display, as long as there's a string there, it calls itself, but it hacks off the beginning, hacks off the first character, and it calls itself. And then when it's done, it simply returns, and when it returns, it's going to print the 0th character, the beginning. So you see, this A gets printed last. We call, each time we call, we get deeper and deeper and deeper, and then as we return, we print and we print and we print and we print. All right, so let's see. I had my Pearson open. I just wanted to point out in this 15.10 gives a discussion of recursion versus iteration. And the reason we're learning recursion is because there are some problems in computer science that are much better expressed as a recursive function. And you may not have heard of any of these functions, and you may never have to write them or write anything like them. But this section, this chapter, this section on recursion does prepare you if you should go on and become a programmer of large exotic programs where you're solving problems where it could be that recursion is a better way to express the solution. You may have heard of the Tower of Hanoi problem. That's one of them. But basically this says that most of the time recursion doesn't make sense. Why? Because each time you're calling, it's expensive to call a function. There's all kinds of this allocation that goes on. Whereas with iteration, you're just keeping track of some loop counter. So anyway, let's see if this works. We're doing reverse display 2 now. So if we start this up, let's do A, B, C, D, E. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to display out this. It displays out the A, B, C, D, E that came in, and then it calls itself again. So when it calls itself, we're back here again, and it prints out what it was called with. First it was called with A, B, C, D, E, then it was called with B, C, D, E, then it was called with C, D, E, then D, E, then E, and then nothing. And once it was called with nothing, it returns and it starts printing out the first character of each string that it was called with. Well, so it's going to print from this one first, and the first character it was called with was an E, so that's why this E gets printed. And then it returns, and we're here. The first character is a D, so that's why this is called. And then here it returns, and the first character is just a C, and so that's this, in B, and then A. And so in this case, we do the recursion first. We keep calling itself first, and then when we return from the recursion, we print. In this case here, it was recursive, but we printed first, and then we called itself. And in this case, this one, the first one, it was just an iteration. Okay, so when handing this in, you don't hand this one in. Pick one of these. Either pick this one, or this one. and include that with your solution. You can close this and save all and close, exit. And if we go back to our, let's see, here is the folder. Looks like this. This is what you double click on to start it up again, and this here is your Python program. So we have this. We want to right click and send to compressed zip folder, and we end up with this. And so we want to submit that by going to down here, browse. We want to select reverse, not this, that's the folder. Go down here and select the actual zip file, and we can submit, and it's submitted. All right, thanks for watching.